Hello, friends. Last week, in a stunning upset, none of our Avenger characters could possibly defeat the MVP from the DC side of this show. This individual is a native islander, known for their fabulous fashion sense. They are obviously somebody with incredible strength, someone who really is, as much as they're known for their compassion, is also known for occasionally snapping villains' necks. This is a character that is somewhat popular with our co-host tonight. I am talking about our MVP, Diana Prince herself, Diana of Themyscira. If you want to see who tonight's MVP is going to be, you got to stick around and watch the show. That's right, friends. Welcome back to another Avengers versus Justice League of America. This is the Silver Age comic book competition show. We're looking at Silver Age books, team comics from Justice League and from Avengers, the original run, going head to head. Which is the better story, art, interior, cover, you name it? We are breaking these books down, and you in the chat help us to decide what is the champion of the week. We got two killer books for you and an awesome guest host, as always, my compatriot here, Magic Lasso.
Say the intro again. Say it again. She's the MVP. I put her on my chest. I was so excited. It took 10 editions to get her to be. She wasn't even nominated before.
No, not even a shot.
She did it finally.
Yeah, a native islander. That's how I think of her. Just the a woman of clay and class. So congrats to you. All the finest bagels in the land for you, sir.
Yes, and no beagles.
No beagles. Yeah. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know Ryan from Magic Lasso, the links are all down below, but you got to be following him, because each time we do another episode in this competition show, it bounces back and forth. He has done issues, all the odd numbers, issues 1 through 9 up to now. The competition stands Justice League 5, Avengers 4. These books have been up and down, highs and lows, favorites, non-favorites. We've gone back and forth, and tonight we're talking about issue number 10, our first double-digit issue here. We've moved out of the top 9 and we're into number 10. So we're going to discuss those books with you tonight. We break them down into categories. We start with cover, then we do story, and we'll break down what happens in the issues for you. Then we will do interior artwork. Then we will do MVP, who is the MVP of each book. We team up to decide, and then the MVPs go head to head. We have one MVP champion across both titles. And then you in the chat, after all the discussion, after all the evidence that we presented to you, you in the chat help us to decide what is the more entertaining comic. Not the most valuable book, certainly not our personal favorites. We'll let you know our thoughts, but you are the decision makers, the deciders, to let us know what was the better comic book. All right. Let's say hello to our friends in the chat before we start the Silver Age savagery. We got Rob Boswell holding it down. I appreciate you, Rob. Hope everything's going well in your neck of the woods. We got my neighbor. We got Ruby G hanging out in the chat. What's going on, Ruben? We got Matt in Clemson. What's going on, Matt? Good to see you, sir. We got Derek in the chat. What's going on, Derek? He's dropping some emojis. We got No Good Comics. What's going on, Justin? He's saying hello to everybody in the chat. We got Kenneth Bird. What's going on, Kenneth? Appreciate you. You are Earth's mightiest chatters tonight, and I will keep shouting you out as we roll through the show tonight, bit by bit. But Ryan, let's dive in first with your copy, because obviously this show kind of got started because both of us working through collecting these first handful of issues, and you obviously the entire first volume of Justice League of America. Do you have a story that goes along with the copy of Justice League issue number 10?
Yeah, so my number 10 I picked up in the fall of 2023 at a comic show. I'm not talking like a Comic Con where there's celebrities and there's creators. I'm talking like a VFW hall where a bunch of people who are selling comic books get together for one day and we all go in there. That's what I'm talking about. And I don't know about you, but when I go to comic shows like that, I start cruising around a little bit before I make a purchase. I like to make a full round before I make a purchase because you never know they might even have the same thing at a better price than what you could have bought. But when I got to this dealer, I didn't even make a full round before I got to this dealer, and he had this Justice League 10, and all his books were half the price of what was listed and I'm like, I'm getting it. I am just magic. Yeah. Absolutely getting this book. So that's the story, because I was at this point, I was actively working on my Justice League, saying I'm going to go after volume 1. So that's the story how I got my copy.
Nice. Let's take a look at this cover. Let's see what we're talking about here. Let me blow you up here. Yes. The fantastic fingers of Felix Faust.
Yes. We got a yellow cover, and I know there are people that are yellow cover fans.
It looks like he's got one extra finger. He could fit another Justice Leaguer on there.
He could, yeah. He's even got Snapper on there. I mean, there's still room for one more. So I guess maybe you snap with that one. Use that for your snapping.
So what are your thoughts on this cover? Oh, sorry, let me load the banner for that. Sorry, cover. Here we go.
Not my favorite.
What is it you don't like about it?
We come off such an iconic previous cover that was so good and so poster worthy. I'm not crazy about the side view of Felix Faust. This is his first appearance, by the way. He would go on to be a big JLA villain, big DC villain. Okay. I do have a little sentimental attachment to Felix Faust because the first piece of original published comic book artwork that I ever owned is a page that Felix Faust was on. Or he was on that page. So it wasn't from a Justice League book. It was from a Wonder Woman Bronze Age book.
Shocker.
But I don't know. This cover, it's all right. It's not horrible. It's not my favorite.
And I agree with you 100%. It's creepy for me. Like it's kind of grotesque. It kind of creeps me out. I don't know what it is. It's like body horror or something for me. It's just kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies a little bit. I don't mind. I like yellow covers as a rule. So that's not really my problem with this one. It's just kind of weird. It's just kind of creepy and weird.
Yeah.
We got Rawfist in the chat. What's going on, Rawfist? And we got Matt from Mr. Gretzky 9966. What is going on, my friend? Yeah. It just really that's all I got to say about it. Is it just gives me the creepies a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, well, my cover issue 10 is much like a few others that I've shared up to now. This is, I should probably blow it up so people can see it real quick. This is a book I got from TJ, the Slab Dragon Watson. It's got the little circular stickers on the back. That means that it's from a certain collection where the young gentleman who lost these books, he had passed away and his family was selling them, and they were in very nice grades. So TJ had kept them marked with those stickers, and then occasionally would get some of them slabbed. But he sent a handful of them raw to me, including this and the last issue we did, the Wonder Man issue. It's in great shape. It's got a little Marvel. It's got a little chipping on the cover at the top. You can kind of see there. That's really the only major flaw. The colors look so strong, and just a gorgeous copy. What are your thoughts on this cover?
I'm not crazy about that cover either. And the deal is, I mean, here we have, an all yellow cover versus a white cover.
Right.
Neither one has background in it.
No.
What I don't like about the Avengers cover, it's too much text. Get all that text underneath the trade dress. Get rid of that.
You're never going to get rid of that problem as long as Stan Lee is on the title.
Yeah. And also, it doesn't look like to me like they're breaking up. It looks like they're fighting.
Right.
And I just didn't think that this was that accurate of a depiction of the story inside.
Fair.
So I'm not crazy about this one either.
Yeah, it's not one of my favorites either. I do like the perspective on it just fine. I don't mind any of that. I like the motion, the action. I really like this wasp, kind of fun zooming in across the bottom. So I can appreciate that. Obviously, with a big character like Immortus being on the cover there, I kind of like the way they point him out. But yeah, obviously, this is that era of Silver Age book where you got to have a ton of word bubbles and things on the cover. I would argue that compared to a lot of the ones in this run we've had to now, this one has a minimal amount of chatter on the cover, just 2 little boxes. So if you had to pick one, who is the winner for you this week?
I'll start saying you and everyone in the chat, you can start dropping in which cover you like
let us know
which
book has the better cover, chat.
And I'll say something else that's interesting. Mine has a word balloon, and not that often. Sometimes you get word balloons on covers, so that's a little bit different in itself.
For sure.
Out of the 2 of these, I would go with the Avengers cover as the one that I like the better of the 2. But I'm still not. I'm honestly not crazy about either one of these covers.
Yeah, and I agree with all your sentiments. Yeah, I would pick the Avengers book, but it would be like a begrudging kind of a thing. It would not be a enthusiastic endorsement by any means.
Yeah.
So looks like Matt and Clemson's picking the Avengers book. Christina's in the chat dropping Ryan's link. I appreciate you doing that, Christina. So you guys can all click that and be over there so that when we do issue 11, that awesome Spider-Man cover, we're going to be over on Ryan's channel. You want to be there for it. Rafa says Avengers. Always thought that JLA cover was a bit creepy as well. We're both winners. Well, we're winners because we were lucky enough to be hunting these books and collecting them at the right time, and to have these in our collection is really what makes us the winners. You, the chat, get to decide which book is the superior one. We got to vote for JLA, so it looks like it's 2-1 Avengers so far in the chat.
So let me say, timing is so interesting because literally this past weekend, I found the Justice League issue from the Bronze Age that reprints issue 10 and issue 11, and they put a new cover on it.
Really?
So this is their cover for it.
Let me blow this up. Yeah, this is the one you were sharing with me the other day.
Yeah, and I showed this in my latest comic book editions video, which dropped yesterday on my channel.
Is it 2 issues? It's 2 issues.
It's right? 2 issues. So this is the cover of 10. That's their version of the cover of 11, which is different than the one that we're going to see next month.
Yeah.
But I think this works a little bit better in this perspective than having him in the profile.
Yes. And I really love the 11 cover, the alternative 11 cover. I like a bunch too. That's fascinating. When did they start doing those reprints like that?
They started doing those, and they did these in the Justice League title for a while. Probably starting in the 40s, they were already reprinting stories that they had published before. And there's some issues. You can take me off. Yeah,
sorry.
There's some issues where, I mean, you have all these consecutive original stories, and then bam, they just hit you with a reprint. It's like, I don't know if there were deadlines or what was going on, and they just hit you with it, and it's like, it's a little jarring. And
sure,
they
were double sized books though, right? Because they would always do 2.
Sometimes they'd even do 3.
Oh wow!
But like in this case now, at the time that this came out, Wonder Woman was depowered. She was her mod era Diana Prince. So here, nowadays, marketing wise, they would never do something and put the character who's back in her original form. They would never do that. But back then, there wasn't marketing back then. So I like this much better than probably the other 2. Just this side of it, I like much better. But I can't grade it on that. That's not what this is about tonight.
No, but it's nice to share those alternative versions. It's kind of like classic X-Men or whatever, getting a chance to see that alternative for sure.
Yeah.
Well, then let's get into the stories on these.
Yeah, because it looks like Avengers got it for cover.
Yeah. Thank you, chat. Keep up with us. We're going to dive into the story now, spend a little time giving you the synopsis for each of these books. Which one do you want to go first tonight?
Avengers can go first.
All right. You're going to do Avengers. We'll do the story for the Avengers. This issue continues kind of some of the stuff that's been going on with Captain America since his return from and let me do this. Let's do that, and then I'll slide you over like How's that? There you go. From the a lot of his return from the frozen ice that the Captain America was in, he's been dealing with his previous enemies who are still alive. So a lot of this focus has been on Cap in that way. We start off with a training session where the Avengers are trying to capture Captain America, who they consider to be the only non-superpowered team member, despite the super serum. So he's bouncing around trying to avoid being captured. And of course, they catch him and they say, hey, 45 something seconds. That's impressive. You know, that's your new record. And Cap wants to get to a minute with all of them trying to catch him, right? Meanwhile, they're having their chair session where they sit down and they vote on different things for the team. Somebody suggests, hey, what about Rick Jones becoming an official team member? This triggers Captain America. He is still dealing with PTSD from losing Bucky, and he's like, nope, no, I'm not ready to talk about this. This is, as for some reason, almost like a parent. He's like, this is up to me. It's not up to you. You don't get to make this decision. He's not an adult. I'm the adult in the room. I'm going to decide. And he kind of storms off in a kind of dramatic huff. And then we jump to the villains that we saw in some of the previous issues in this run. We've got Zemo, and we've got the Executioner, and we've got the Enchantress, and they're stewing over the fact that they've failed now several times in defeating the Avengers. And while they're doing this, the Enchantress gets some strange vibrations, and Immortus appears in front of them, and he basically is saying, I am the one that's going to help you conquer all. I need your assistance because I'm from a different time and dimension, and I need you guys to be my fists on the field and in battle. They don't really like this much, and they decide that they're going to throw down with him. And he to prove his power, he creates a stand-in for himself in battle with the Executioner. He creates Paul Bunyan. No Blue Ox, but still Paul's there. And he throws down with the Executioner until finally Zemo's like, dude, you're gonna trash my base. Like, stop this. And then Immortus is like, I'm so powerful, I'm amazing. And they're like, well, then you need to prove it to us. And he's like, okay, fine. Not only will I defeat one Avenger, but I'm going to defeat all of them. And he sort of vanishes. And the rest of the team is like, why would you let him do that? And then Zemo's like, look, if he wins, Avengers die. If he fails, we've gotten him out of our way. So either way, it's a win-win for us, right? We jump back to our heroes, and we've got Rick Jones walking the street, and he picks up a newspaper, or his buddy at the comic shop says, hey, you got to read this ad. You can get superpowers. So he's like, oh, I don't have any, so I'm going to go check it out. Of course, it's a ploy. Immortus has planned this all out, and he captures Rick Jones, and basically, well, I mean, Rick Jones does fight back a little bit because he's learned some training from Captain America. But the Attila the Hun that has been created by Immortus defeats him, captures him, and they travel back to the 18th century and lock him in the Tower of London. Then when Captain America can't seem to find where Rick Jones is, he finds the comic book with the advertisement, and it leads him straight to Immortus instead of calling the Avengers and getting help. So he shows up to Immortus and basically is saying, what are you doing taking my ward? And Immortus is like, you know what? Your buddies told me to capture him. Your teammates, they're the ones that told me your weakness was Rick Jones. That's why I captured him. And that sends apparently Captain America off to be upset because he's going to now battle the Avengers because he's mad at them. And Immortus has tricked him into thinking they know where Rick is. So then the next few pages are a lot of Cap fighting the Avengers in a rage. He is so upset. He's battling each one. He's using like special canisters of chemical fire extinguisher to battle off of Captain, or to battle with Iron Man. He's dodging in and around the Giant Man and knocking him over onto people. He's even using the shield on Wanda, the Wasp, and it's just all really going sideways. The team is not really communicating well, and finally the team's like, dude, we didn't do anything to you. Why are you beating the snot out of us? That's when Immortus appears, and he's like, ha ha ha, I've fooled you all, and now I'm going to force you to battle against people I've chosen to fight you. And first up, he summons Goliath to battle Giant Man. And you have these two giant characters going head to head. And other characters try to jump in, and they seem to be told by the team, like, no, this has to be a one-on-one thing. But Wasp does enough to distract Goliath that Giant Man has shrunk down and created a little slingshot, and he launches himself just like David with the slingshot, and he knocks Goliath down. This, of course, upsets Immortus, who's kind of like, I'm a genius. I was going to kill all of you. Now I've already failed in my first one. Like, kind of a bummer. Next, we have Merlin brought to battle Iron Man. And Merlin has all these spells. He's capturing Iron Man in different cages, but Iron Man always seems to have a technology to get out of it, including a little thing in his belt that causes some vertigo and some dizziness and some nausea in Merlin until he passes out. And Iron Man's like, I don't know what's with this old guy. He sent to fight me. And then we get Hercules to battle Thor, which, as far as I understand, this is not the Hercules we get later in comics. This is another variant of Hercules. I don't know. So then they, of course, go Greco-Roman. There's a lot of wrestling. There's a lot of throwing. And Thor throws Hercules off of the balcony and then, basically rescues him, in which case Hercules admits defeat. And then this is all upsetting Immortus. He is very frustrated. So he decides to take Captain America and stick him in the 18th century and let all of his soldiers in the 18th century defeat Captain America for him. He's like, no, these guys will all take care of you, Cap. You're in deep weeds. And we jump back and we see the villains from before. They're saying, wow, he did it. He got rid of Captain America. This is pretty amazing. We should fly over there and try to defeat them all now. The Avengers team is sitting around going like, what is going on? Like, Cap seems off his nut. We're all battling crazy creatures from across time. And then all of a sudden the door is broken down and here comes the Executioner, and he's grabbing people. He's beating people up. Enchantress is casting some spells on Giant Man. Everybody's kind of at a loss for what's going on. Zemo even has like a gun, and he's kind of creating some like melted ore that's wrapping up Thor's hands, so he can't really fight back. This is all just kind of happening at the same time. Indeed, oh my word, Jackson, you are quite correct. In the end, of course, the team figures it out. They find little ways to defeat each one of these bad guys. They work as a team, and they're slowly able to defeat some of these characters, including the fact that Captain America all of a sudden appears. He's using his shield, and he's got Rick Jones with him, and they're all like, wait, how did you get back here? And he's like, oh, no, don't worry. I figured it out. I got back. I rescued him. Nobody knew karate and judo back in this day and age. So I rescued Rick Jones and made my way back here. Then the team all of a sudden teams up together. Then they defeat the Executioner and they defeat Enchantress. Enchantress, who's very upset, admits defeat. She says, we've lost. This is the truth. I'm going to get everybody out of here. She uses her abilities to make them all kind of forget what's happened here and sort of transport their minds back to where they were when they were sitting down for their team meeting at the beginning of the issue. And meanwhile, she escapes with Executioner and Zemo, and they're all very mad with one another. And the team is back to trying to decide, hey, should we make Rick Jones a team member? We're back at the beginning again. And Cap is yet again saying, no. This is my decision. I'm daddy. He's the little boy. And we don't get an answer. But we do get a really great splash page of Captain America that's a masterwork pinup that kids could hang on their wall. And then some letters, and we're done. Oops, sorry, that's not what I'm doing. I'm going here. Good. How did I do? Did I miss anything?
You did good. No, I think you covered the main parts. Masters of Evil, the villains do remember what happened.
Yes, just the heroes forget.
But the heroes forget. So,
what is up, John? Now that I know you're a John too, we got another awesome John out here.
But only one Storm guy.
Yes, there's only one Storm guy. That's the Storm guy. Do we want to do now JLA real quick?
Yeah, let's do the JLA one.
All right, let's go. And I will swap spots with you. Blah! And we will go with Felix. It's time to learn about Felix.
The Fantastic Fingers of Felix Faust. As we usually get a recap of the cover on our first page splash. And our story starts with a whole bunch of occurrences that are going on simultaneously in very different parts of the world. Like there's something rising, from underneath solid ice and in the desert and in the water. These spirits are just appearing. And they're being all led to this lighthouse that is off the coast of Maine. Inside the lighthouse, we find out that Felix Faust has gathered all of these demons together. They've been imprisoned by the Timeless Ones. They ask who he is. And he essentially says, I have studied black magic for quite some time, and I learned the spell on how to get you. But first, before he delves in more about himself, these demons, rather, reveal how they came to be, a brief history of their origin. So, long before man ever walked the earth, these demons ruled it until the Timeless Ones arrived. And when the Timeless Ones arrived, they captured them. But they were smart enough to know that they could essentially put in a state of suspended animation, and they would live forever, and eventually someone would be able to free them. And in doing so, there are 3 tokens which could free them. And it's a jar, a wheel, and a bell. So these demons get sent off. These objects get hidden so far away in different places of Earth. That's why one's under the sand, one is under the water, and so on and so forth. And they say to Felix, well, if you can get these objects, but we really don't think you can, because it would take someone with incredible powers. And he says, hey, there's people who have incredible powers now that could do this. There's superheroes on there, and they become intrigued. They said, but part of the problem is going to be, you free us. Once you begin this process, it's going to take 100 years before we can be free. So in the meantime, before any of this starts, they say, again, essentially, who are you? And Felix Faust talks about how he studied black magic, and he found this book that was almost, people even wondered if it was written, and he learned to master the black arts, so to speak, to be able to conjure these demons to them. So the demons say, well, you might be able to control our powers a little bit if you can free us from this in the meantime, and we can tell you how to do it. And they want some different artifacts. So they want things like, they say you're going to need the wing of a bat, the hoe of a cat, the shell from the great seashore, a mallet and a tusk, and a white dead's head, pomegranate, goose feather, the skin of a sheep. So Felix gathers all of these different items, and these demons start sending out a spell. Things that say like, Fingers 5 and Fingers 9, Flash and Batman now confined. So Felix has got his hands out like this. And the demons are conjuring all these different superheroes. And what's happening is they're represented on Felix's fingers. So he's looking down a little bit in amazement as the demons keep instructing him. They're like, okay, have Flash touch the Batwing. And, have Batman touch the seashell. Have Superman hit the hide of the cat. Because what if they can get that to happen in real life, Felix will gain control over them. So our first chapter ends with him with this knowledge that he can control these Justice League members now, and he can control them. And once they touch these inanimate objects, they'll be transported over to Felix. So that's the end of chapter 1. Chapter 2 begins with the Lords of Time, which the Justice League are in the process of battling. Here we have Flash and Batman teaming up, and as they're battling, what would happen? Well, these razor-sharp metal discs are flying at Batman, and they cut part of his cape. The cape falls off, it lands on top of Flash. Well, that instantly triggers one of the things that the demons needed. So Flash starts to disappear as Batman starts to disappear because he falls off. He hits a light switch, but the light switch is made of mother of pearl, which is another form of seashell. So those two are gone, and in being transported over to Felix Faust for him to control. Martian Manhunter, Wonder Woman, and Superman are now in their process of trying to stop these time bandits that they were battling before. And the same thing essentially happens to them. Superman is battling one who has tiger skin on, so that's a cat. And when Superman comes in contact with that, he dooms them. Wonder Woman, she gets the Spanish word for, she's encountering a grenade, which is the Spanish word for pomegranate. So Wonder Woman has fallen under her spell. Martian Manhunter goes to fly up, and there's a cloud, and he doesn't notice this, but the cloud is in the shape of the Death Head, of the Death Head moth, and now Martian Manhunter's fallen victim. Our next set of superheroes has Green Lantern and Aquaman, and they're trying to battle this futuristic battleship when Aquaman picks up this tortoise even and is able to repel some spears that are being headed his way. Snapper cars with them as well. Green Arrow's watching from above with Snapper, and Green Arrow says, hey, keep an eye out on the sky, for any aerial attacks. And Snapper just bought a pair of opera glasses, as you do with your extra money, Daddy-O. And those ivory glasses, ivory's the same as elephant's tusk. So right now, everyone has been transported because they've hit the objects that they were meant to hit, except Green Arrow. He's the final one who finally ends up getting under Felix Faust's control.
Yeah,
because
that darn goose feather.
Goose feathers in his arrow. So they arrive, and as chapter 2 concludes, he divides them into teams and says, these are the relics that you're going to get. A group of you is going to get me the red jar, a group of you is going to get me the green bell, and the other 3 of you are going to get me the silver wheel. And he essentially sends them off because they're under his spell and his control now.
What are the odds that they're going to send the Green Lantern for a yellow thing?
Exactly. So they're out and about. Superman has located the red jar, and he drills himself into the ground and tells Green Arrow and Wonder Woman to follow. They run into some trouble because there's people and spirits and creatures protecting all of these instruments. Or in this case, it's a musical instrument that they're using to try to keep people away from these objects, like the jar and so forth. So finally, after being able to defeat this creature with his musical abilities, which is put up a sound barrier, they're able to retrieve that jar that they need, and they head back to the lighthouse. Our next group of heroes includes Martian Manhunter and Flash and Batman. And once you know it, Fire Monster. And Flash he's able to use his hands with some water that's coming his way to redirect that to put out the fire monster. Batman has noticed that whenever they try to get close to the object that they need to get, that there's this protection around it, and it's anything that you throw at it just flies right back at you. So he creates kind of a counter attack to it. And finally, they are able to get the item that they need. What I thought was interesting, somewhere in the story, right at the beginning, it says Flash was vibrating around trying to cause the bell to ring to locate it. And they put an editor's note that said, at this speed, the Flash can circle the Earth 7 times in a second. So if you're wondering how fast he is, that's where we're at. So we go check in on the final group of people right now. We got Aquaman, Green Lantern, and Snapper. They're going underwater. And there's an electric monster that's trying to keep them away from getting this last relic, the silver wheel that they need to get. But they are able to defeat him. And even though he's yellow and the Green Lantern power ring can't stop him, it can stop the avalanche that he causes. And they're able to create a vacuum that essentially sucks him down. And then Green Lantern uses his hammer and kind of seals the deal and seals him in there. So finally we get back, and they're still all under control of Felix Faust. And he's got all 3 of these relics. He can start this process now. In 100 years, it's going to release the spirits. But in the meantime, he's going to get the power to be able to use until they arrive. And he says it takes 5 minutes for the spell to make him the greatest sorcerer in the universe. When all of a sudden, this big whale tail hits the side of his lighthouse, and these fish start flying in and start attacking him and essentially knock him unconscious before he's able to gain that power that he was looking for. When he gets knocked unconscious, the Justice League breaks free of their spell. And they say, okay, well, we're going to take these mystic orbs and put them in our souvenir room to figure out. And Wonder Woman's like, well, I'll take Felix Faust to jail. And they're like, well, we need to get back battling the Lords of Time, which we were doing before we got interrupted by this. and they're like, well, you know, Felix, I don't know what he was thinking trying to free these three demons. And Wonder Woman says it was probably just part of his incantation, but, you know, we don't have to worry really about these demons. And as the story ends, Felix is thinking, they don't know that my incantation lasted long enough to set into operation the forces which will release these three demons in 100 years. So even though the Justice League say the present day Earth for me, there's no chance of there being around a century from now when three demons gain complete mastery of the world. And that ends our issue, and it's our first to be continued story. Because we will, even though it's an issue within itself, with the Felix Faust, it will continue into the next issue with the demons.
That was an exciting roller coaster ride, that issue. I tell you, there's a lot of things going on, but there's some friends that jumped into the chat. I wanted to say hi. I didn't officially say hi to Jackson Roy Kirk, but hello. Good to see you, sir. And then we've also got now my holy king. What is going on? Good to see you. He says Superman alone can take out the Avengers quick. If only it was that simple. Instead, the competition is between the story in issue number 10 and the story in issue number 10, right? So which issue number 10 had the better story? So let's talk a little bit. We just did the Justice League, so let's talk a little bit about that one.
Yeah. And those in the chat, you can start voting right now.
Yeah.
Avengers or JLA, while John and I are just throwing our thoughts about both stories out there. You can start voting right now. I didn't like the thoughts on reading this issue? I didn't like this story. I didn't like this story at all.
What didn't you like?
I didn't like any of it. The beginning was too much of demons and I mean, I knew who Felix Faust was just from his legacy of becoming a badass DC villain, but where's my characters in the beginning? They weren't in, it was too much in the beginning without them in there. And then all this, you got to do this, and then you got to do this, and then it's going to be 100 years. And then it was too much. I read this story twice in the last 2 days.
Okay.
I didn't like it either time. So
I see a lot of what you're saying. And I would say my biggest gripe was that it jumped around a lot.
It did.
First, he's like, Felix has this big plan. He's like, I'm going to use the power of these creatures. But then the creatures show up and they're like, actually, you need these three objects. That's what's really happening. And then they're like, but you can't get those things. What you also need is like a feather and a pillow and like they list all these other things. And then they're like, and then you'll be able to get the other thing, which is the Justice League. And then they're going to be, it was like, it felt like a lot of and thens for me.
It's 15 pounds in a 5-pound sack.
Exactly. So for me, that was my only frustration, was that there was not a streamlined story here. It was really kind of all over the map. And as a result, it was kind of complicated to really like get into it. The action was entertaining, and I did like some of the stuff that the characters were doing, but overall, it was a bit of a hard thing to follow.
I was gonna say, I like that when, like they always do, they split up the Justice League into teams. I like that they did different teams than they typically do. They paired, like, you usually don't get Superman, Wonder Woman, and Green Arrow together. That's not your typical pairing. And they made the pairings much more unique this time. And Snapper's actually in the story. He usually only comes in at the very beginning or very end of the story. He's actually in this full story, Daddy-O.
Yeah, he gets a big part to play, kind of like Rick Jones gets a big part in the other issue. It's kind of funny. It is a tricky comparison, Rawfist. It's always going to be challenging, but what we're looking at and kind of trying to get into, and the fun of this is Silver Age Team Comics, these are only a handful of years apart as far as publication date. And there's some fun ways in which these stories are told in that Silver Age style, where we can kind of look at them from a perspective of how are they doing at telling a good team comic book, right? Telling a good story within that, because juggling all these characters and all these stories, it can sometimes feel like a lot to manage in one comic. And that's kind of been the fun of this show, I think, for at least for Ryan and I. Okay. Do we want to jump over to the other book?
Let's talk about Avengers, what we liked and what we didn't.
What were your thoughts on the Avengers book?
I didn't like this one either. So
it's the theme of the night.
We had an episode like this before where we didn't, neither one of us, I don't know about you, I'm just speaking for myself, but I didn't like either book that month. And I'm back at that again this month. I didn't like either book. The Avengers story, why, Captain America and this Rick Jones thing is like, I know that times are different, and I just remind myself because it doesn't play out very well these days. Like, you are no one to decide what's going to happen to this guy.
Yeah.
You are nothing to him. This is not Bucky. I don't care that his only similarity to Bucky is he's young and a boy. That's it.
Right. And he admires and looks up to you, I guess.
That's it.
Yeah.
But it's almost stalkerish, and it's a little much.
It feels like a gay couple, and he's trying to control the young twink a little bit here. And it's not really working really well.
And then, everyone's like, we're going to make them break up. I didn't feel like the Avengers broke up in that story.
No, that was sort of like false advertising to sell the book a little bit, because in my opinion, my least favorite part of this book is the Cap decides, I'm just going to beat the crud out of my friends because the bad guy told me so. That bit of the story, I totally sympathize with Captain America being desirous of sheltering Rick Jones. Like, that makes sense to me. His PTSD, his depression or sadness over losing Bucky, I get that. That works as character development, even if it's a little heavy-handed. What doesn't work for me is Captain America being so easily duped by a villain into going and beating and trying to fight his entire team because the bad guy says to do it. Like, it's not even like he's being mind controlled here, which I would have preferred, I think, as a plot device, maybe some mind control. Or if they said, oh, you have to defeat the Avengers if you want your friend back, something like that forces the issue a little better than the con artist thing that Immortus pulls off in this. That was my least favorite part of the Avengers book, was that whole sequence. The fighting was, I guess, entertaining, but it was built on such a house of cards, it didn't work in the end.
Yeah, and I mean, a big part of the story is Cap escapes from centuries past, and you don't see it, and he's, I mean, I know the song wasn't out at that time, but I mean, everybody was kung fu fighting. I think a reader back then might have kind of gotten a kick out of seeing that.
I mean, I think they did leave out one of the better parts, which is Captain America defeating an army of knights in 18th century London, and then getting back to our time. Like, that whole plot is kind of skipped over so that we can have another rehash of Executioner and the villains versus the Avengers as they're sitting around trying to figure out why Cap went crazy.
When did the villains get their powers back? I remember them being like, was there a time where they got the powers back? Am I just forgetting that?
I don't remember them being depowered.
I thought like Enchantress was like, I can't go back to Asgard. And did I just totally make that part? Am I remembering something?
I don't remember them losing their power.
Okay.
I do remember them being like unable to go back to some of their places. I don't remember the powers being
okay.
restricted.
Maybe it was just that they were earthbound. But and another thing too, why is Paul Bunyan in this story?
I mean, Attila the Hun, Paul Bunyan.
Paul Bunyan. I mean,
yeah.
I know some of the ladies think that he's a babe.
Yo. Yeah, it's some odd story choices going on here for certain, and I'm with you 100%. And apparently the chat's with us as well. They're choosing for it's wholeheartedly JLA story for this crew. 3 out of 3. No, I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you for participating. We love the participation from the chat. Rob Boswell just says start over. You got to go back. Do it again. Do it again.
Start over, yeah. So which one would you pick for the better story?
I think as much as the Avengers book has these weird false flag kind of moments, it's the better streamlined story for me. Like I can follow it from beginning to end, even if I don't agree with the logic jumps that it takes.
Mm-hmm.
The Justice League story is too many Russian nesting dolls. I can't even keep track of which MacGuffin I'm supposed to be watching over in the issue. It's a little bit much with all the little objects they're chasing across time. So for me, it's 6 of one, a half a dozen of the other, but I'm going to go with Avengers for story for me.
So I think it's been interesting how you've pointed out in so many previous episodes the similarities between the books and the stories too. And tonight we have, I guess, things from the past coming back that the heroes have to battle against, which is so weird that like every issue there's almost common themes like that in every issue. It's so odd, and I never really picked up on that until you started picking up on it, and now I notice it all the time.
Well, I will. I'm going to give that credit right back to you, because even when we started planning this, you were like, "Oh, it's going to be fun," because issue 8, there's some similarities. You know, there's some first appearance fun similarities. Yeah. Issue 4, there's some fun similarities. So you were already kind of connecting dots across key issues later in the run.
Yeah, because last month it was all origin issues.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but anyway, between the two, as I said, I didn't like either one, but I do know which one I'm going to pick as the better story, and that's Avengers. Okay. And let me tell you why I'm picking that. So typically in an Avengers story, Wasp might get 3 word balloons throughout the entire issue. I don't even think she got 3. She might have gotten 2 in this one. As a matter of fact, at one point I was even looking to see if she was in the story. But she said absolutely nothing stupid in this issue.
Yes.
She barely spoke, but she didn't say anything stupid.
No, she didn't have any of her usual, "Oh, wow, he looks so good in that outfit. Oh, wow, what's going on with my hair and my clothes?" And, you know, there was less of the artifice that we've seen with her before. I was going to say, I love her line, "No, you don't, you blonde bewitcher," when she's fighting the Enchantress. I love it.
The blonde bewitcher.
All right. So we're in agreement. The chat's in agreement, but between the two of us, there is still a disparity between the panel and the chat. And I love the voting that's going on out there, folks.
Good job.
We're now going to move on to the next segment, which is the interior artwork. We've mentioned in the past that Jack Kirby has moved on. This is Don Heck on the artwork for the Avengers comic. The JLA book has stayed consistent with Mike Sikowski all the way along, and I believe he's the whole omnibus. So
he will stay.
We won't have to worry about any changes in style on that front. What are your thoughts on the artwork in these books? Would you want to do Justice League first?
Sure. So Justice League, as you said, it's been consistent. There's nothing that I look at any of these Justice League panels and go, "That's horrible. That was rushed. That was anything." It's as consistent throughout the entire book as it was consistent in the previous issue, and I know it will be consistent in the next issue, and the next issue, and the next issue. It's so smooth. There's no complaints about the artwork at all.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the consistency in the title has been strong, and the detail work has been impressive. I was going to show my favorite panel, which is probably one that nobody would pick. I guarantee you, like if we gave this to 100 people to pick their favorite panel, they wouldn't pick the one I'm picking. I'm going with, that's not the cover. That's the one I wanted. This one. Hey, Ryan. I'm going with this simple drawing of the clouds and the lightning bolts. I just love it. I love it's probably just all the color work. There's something about it. I love the lettering of the spell flying across time and space. It's just popped for me in a different kind of way. The clouds look so interesting, and we've talked a lot on this show about background artwork, how a lot of the artists, or at least Kirby and Heck so far on Avengers, rush the background or completely ignore it, and that's never been the case in the JLA book. And I think this is just it could have been a throwaway panel, the sky is alight with energy, and the spell is drifting across time and space. It could have been a throwaway panel, but for me, it just popped. Both times that I read it in the last week, it stood out to me, and so I'm going with that one.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite?
I'm going to show you my runner-up first, because I've kind of flip-flopped between what my favorite panel is. And hey, Brother John.
What's up?
This is the runner-up. I did like this panel a lot, and for a while I thought I was going to go with that as my favorite panel, but I have changed my mind at the last minute. And my favorite panel, I like this Batman one here.
Yeah.
It goes all the way up the page. I just think that it's a different perspective. I just think it's cool, and I don't know. I just really like that.
They don't do a ton of the vertical panels, and I think when they do, they tend to really pop. And
yeah, I think I picked a vertical one if not last month, very recently I picked up for Justice League.
There was a Wonder Woman Lasso one that I think went up the side that you and I both really loved one week, for sure. All right, well then let's talk Avengers. How is Don Heck's sophomore issue on Avengers work for you?
I thought he does a great job on it. I'm really happy with the artwork on here. There's still some lack of backgrounds, like you see in a panel like this, where there's nothing back there. But
I noticed that a lot more in this second issue than I did in the first issue. I felt like I was seeing a lot more solid color background
there is, and I'm still not crazy about that.
No, this issue felt like it had a similar amount to maybe the Kirby issues we'd gotten before this one. So that stuck with me a little bit and disappointed me somewhat.
But he's really good at showing emotions. You look at that panel. Yes. I mean, I'm not picking this as my favorite panel, but that is a great panel.
I did pick a face for my favorite panel.
I did for mine too.
I'm going with, then I'm wondering if you picked the same one. Mine is on the very last page of the comic.
It's not then.
Okay. So then you want to do yours first then? Or
yeah, I can do mine first.
The big screen.
There's a few close-up panels of Enchantress, but this is and I liked all of them. This is the one I like the best though.
Oh, I love how we're both on the same page here, because I
bet you picked the other one of her. Yeah. I just thought this one, just the glare in her eye, and getting Wasp in there too, because she was barely in the story. I don't know. When I saw this, I went, oh, that's really, really good.
And you're totally right. There's like 4 or 5 here at the end of the book. If you want to go to the last page, that top left panel, if you don't mind.
I see. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you know what? I almost chose this too.
It's gorgeous. It's such her eye, the shape of her face, the intensity in it. And then it works especially well in the story, because what she's doing is what none of the men in the story are willing to do, which is to admit defeat. Yeah. And she's basically saying, we failed yet again. I'm going to use my magic to reset this whole thing. Right. Yeah. So that was my favorite. But yeah, the face artwork is really strong still, and I think Don Heck is bringing some emotional weight to the story for me.
So you all in the chat, who did you think which book had the better art tonight? From what
Brother John, I know he's saying Justice League all the way, but I don't know if he's just saying his overall thoughts or if he's saying specifically the artwork. It sounds like Rob Boswell is with us on the no backgrounds frustration, and I think it's something that I was hoping that Don Heck would lessen. But it might also be the Marvel Silver Age style of the time, in which case we can expect more of it, which is a challenge,
While they're still giving them a few moments to vote, I apologize for jumping back a category, but there's something that I did want to mention tonight. Did you notice the misspelling in the Justice League book?
If I did, I've forgotten it.
Living Mannequins. Mannikins.
I definitely missed it.
And it's in the original. It's in the reprint. And
oh my god, I'm actually on the page where
it's in digital. It's in digital.
It's directly under my favorite panel. It's like directly under my favorite panel. It says it. That's hilarious.
Yeah, isn't that weird? You don't see that very often. So let me show for
maybe there's an alternative spelling of the word that means something different than the version that we've got. Yeah, it's right under my favorite panel. I'm gonna look it up just to be sure. Mannequins. It says it's a word.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a word. A jointed model of the human body is used in medical training or an artist's lay figure. They're saying that that's a way to spell
I have
it.
never seen that like that before. I didn't know until I'm 0 years old in learning this.
That's weird. But I also see it spelled with only 2 N's instead of 3, right? So Rob is spelling it with 3 N's, and the version I'm finding online has it both with 3 or sometimes just with 1 N in each, the beginning and the middle and the end. So interesting. Mannequin. All right. There you go. All right. For you, the chat is voting their favorite interior artwork between these 2 books, but which one are you going with?
Avengers.
Wow, you're going clean sweep so far with the Avengers.
So far.
Wow. I'm leaning Justice League on this one. I think there were too many blank background panels, and I was enjoying a lot of the action in the Justice League book. So the Justice League is getting my interior art. In the end, and it may just be the rookie reading these JLA issues, because I have read so few of the Silver Age Justice League that for me it's still new, right? There's a novelty to what I'm seeing each time I open this book, which has been the real treat of this for me, has been, tasting this dish for the first time. And I think I'm still kind of caught up in it, and it's still really exciting to me. So, and because for me, the Heck issue or the Avengers issue took a step back in the artwork, and the JLA has remained consistent. That's where I'm giving the edge to the JLA book for me. And it sounds like Rob's with you or with me as well.
I went with Avengers just because of those close-up shots like we talked about of Enchantress and Captain America. Those so close with the emotion, and you get out of it what exactly you're supposed to do.
For sure.
And, maybe that's not fair to Justice League because they've been so consistent in it. Maybe not. But that's why I went Avengers tonight.
But in both cases, you could argue it's because of the novelty of it still.
Sure.
Right.
Absolutely.
I've read some of these issues already on the Avengers side. You've read the Justice League ones, and now we're kind of like switch swapping a little bit here.
Yeah.
It seems like Rob Boswell's holding it down with Brother John and the JLA having the better interior artwork on that side. I appreciate all of you all voting in the chat. We're almost to the end of the show. We got one more category, and then you're going to vote to decide who the overall winner book-wise was tonight. We're going to get into the more challenging category of the night, the one that I feel like you and I, or at least I, always struggle with. MVP. We're looking for the most valuable character in each book, the one who is the linchpin to make this comic work, and then we'll have them go head to head. Let's go with Justice League first, because I feel like this is the harder one for me.
See, I don't. Avengers was harder for me. Justice League was easy.
Oh, wow. Okay, then if it's Justice League's easy, then hit me with your MVP and tell me why.
Aquaman.
I mean,
I never thought I would. This is like the first time I think I think it's Aquaman, because he got that tortoise up in the air to protect him from being hit. But more importantly, at the end, he had the whale use his big tail, because everyone else was like they were being controlled. He could still use his mind, though. Like they knew they were being controlled. They knew what was happening to them. He could still use his mind to communicate to the sea creatures, to use that tail so Felix Faust couldn't gain those powers. And those fish broke through, and fish knocked him unconscious. And they even said something in there like, Aquaman, we knew we could count on you, or something like that. They even make
everybody
comment
was
like
taking
that.
a nap.
So I'm saying for me, it's easily Aquaman for Justice League. But what did you think?
No, I absolutely agree with you. I went around and around a few different times just to kind of try to look and see who else was doing some heavy lifting, literally or figuratively. And I think it may have just been the excitement of seeing Superman actually do something in a Justice League book that I was like, oh, it's kind of nice seeing him, interacting. I did like the the panels with him a bunch, but there's no question for me. You get to the end, and the only reason they win the day is because of Aquaman. So
Okay.
he
So
seems to be the
Aquaman
clear
is definitely the DC side of it.
correct.
Okay. Avengers, what are your thoughts? You said it was easy, so you go first.
Rothfuss named it. I'm going with the Enchantress. I am choosing her. She, for me, the ending works the same way as the Justice League book because of her. She's the one that resets everything, decides, you know what, I'm going to wipe this all out of the Avengers' minds. I'm going to get the bad guys out of here. I'm going to like be the referee and put everybody in their corners and end this whole charade, right? So for me, she was my favorite part of this book as well. Like I was entertained by her all the way through. The battle that she has with, I believe it's Iron Man, and the Wasp. Really entertained by that stuff. Oh, Giant Man. She battles Giant Man. For me, like she's the one that ultimately is like stepping in front of all these machismo guys, and then like shutting down their alpha drama. So I went with the Enchantress. I know she's technically not an Avengers team member.
Well, please, I voted. I mean, one week we had Paste Pot Pete.
I mean,
so I mean,
yeah, I guess I'm not too far out.
And one week I was going to vote for Human Torch, and he wasn't even in the book. But I had a reason, because he's the one who put. If it wasn't for Human Torch, he put Paste Pot Pete in jail, and then they wouldn't have had. But anyway,
I did say charade.
So,
what about yourself? Who's the person that you settled on and thought of?
So things have changed in the last few moments for me.
Okay.
Because where I had a very hard time with the Avengers book, very hard time, and I even went back and I started looking, and I was pretty confident I was going to say Captain America tonight as the MVP. I wasn't crazy about that answer. I didn't have a lot to defend it with, but I had to pick somebody.
And I think if you're looking at the specific like card carrying team members, he's the one that comes off the best.
But to be honest, until I saw that Enchantress comment in there, as soon as I saw that in the chat tonight, all of a sudden it's like everything clicked, and I went, everything that you just said, John, it flashed before me before you said it, and I went, that makes such great sense. How did I not see that? So I do not go with Captain America as my pick. I say the Enchantress.
Nice. So we're in agreement. And shout out to Rothfuss for being ahead, because
you did it. You totally
named both. He got both of them.
Swept my mind. So now the question is, between Enchantress and Aquaman, who's the MVP?
And this is hard, because do you hold it against the Enchantress that she's not a hero in the story? Is that impact voting in any way?
Nope. I say no.
And I also wanted to say, and the reasoning why Captain America shouldn't get the point for me was because he is such a tool at several times early in the story that should count against him being an MVP.
He didn't have to fight them. Why don't you just say, hey, someone, an evil villain told me this. Is it true?
Why don't you trust these people that you've been fighting crime with for the last 5 issues over the bad guy you just met with the horrible hat? I'm just saying. It looks like Gretzky's throwing his love for the JLA artwork. He might be a little behind the show, but he's dropping his comments, and we appreciate you doing that, Matt. It may just be that I don't like Aquaman. That I'm leaning to Enchantress. I also really do think she does some interesting stuff at a few different moments in this, and I think Aquaman has his one shining moment, and it's vital at the end. But I'm leaning at Enchantress at the current time. Enchantress is the grown up in the room. I love it.
So what you say about Enchantress is true. She's been in a lot of previous issues, and hasn't done a whole lot.
I mean, you could say that of any women in any of the Avengers issues up to now. They don't have their Wonder Woman at this point.
I never thought that, for those that haven't watched the show in the past, Aquaman was our very first MVP. Very first. Right. He not only won for DC, he won overall. And when we started this show, if you would have told me that Aquaman would be the first, and had potential to be the first one to repeat.
Right.
Because we haven't had an MVP that's repeated yet.
Not yet. Not after the first 10 or first 9.
That says something. To me, it does a little bit, but it has nothing to do with Aquaman in general. I think it's more Enchantress because she did take that moment to shine, and where she didn't in the previous issues. So this was a step up to me. You know, she didn't step up before, but she did, but she stepped up because they really needed it, and they would have been really in big trouble because you know what? At that time, that Superman in that Justice League issue, when he kissed people, they didn't lose their memory.
So you're voting for Enchantress as well, then?
I am.
Enchantress is the MVP. Who would have thought? Who would have imagined? So those of you that are following the show, tuning in to Ryan's channel and hitting that notification bell, get ready because we're going to have some Enchantress love coming next time we get this show going. Wow. So we've reached the end of the show. This is when you all start voting. I'm going to drop a little start line here. You're allowed 1 vote. Anything after the start line, let us know what is the better comic.
Overall.
Not the spec value, not the Ryan or the John here, but which of these 2 would be the book you would pick up to read if you were given the choice. Whether you're an art fan, maybe the artwork ranks highest. Maybe you're a story person and the story has to rank highest. Maybe you're a cover buyer and the cover ranks highest. Or maybe you're a character person and that MVP matters most. Let us know which book is the winner. Overall, the vote stands. JLA 5, Avengers 4. So is this the tie-up? Or does the JLA extend that lead a little bit? The chat gets to decide. Any votes occurring now until the end of the stream are the ones we count. So Ryan, I get the sense, and you tell me if I'm wrong, that you're leaning Avengers because this looks like a clean sweep on your side of the board.
Yeah, it's going to be Avengers for me tonight. I don't know. But with that having been said, I wasn't crazy about the Avengers issue a whole lot either. I just want to put that on the record that this wasn't like no big old grand slam home run Avengers. Okay. This is more like, I have to pick something.
A begrudging.
But at the same time too, there were some interesting things with Enchantress, and like I really like those close-up panels, as I said before, of the artwork on several different characters. Some of the stuff was just in both issues was odd. Paul Bunyan being in there, that's odd.
Very.
I mean,
the wagon wheel and the pot.
Yes, that's odd.
The objects were so strange.
And they were when they got on his fingers, he could control them. That's weird.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just give me puppets. Puppets work, marionettes work just as well, you know. Give me the NSYNC. Or Backstreet Boys.
NSYNC. Or is it NSYNC? I thought it was, I don't know. You know what I mean, though.
Not a big fan of endings with mind wipes. I mean, that's very fair thing. And Ralph is like, I'm a Marvel guy. He's going JLA. So far, the chat is in complete agreement. Matt, Ralphist, and Rob all going with JLA. So it looks like, unless something happens here, JLA is going to win the night, go 6-4 in the first 10 issues of these books.
What is your pick?
I appreciate you guys in the chat voting. Yeah, I'm going with you. I'm going to vote Avengers of the 2. It's the one that I would read again were I given the opportunity. The artwork meant a lot to me in the JLA book, but it did not overcome the roller coaster of the story for me. So this one, for me, goes Avengers.
So it'll be interesting to see. This is our first JLA story that is a continuation.
So the next issue is a part 2, right?
The next issue, I don't think Felix Faust is in the next issue, but it's those 3 demons that were released.
Right.
So that's what they're dealing with. I don't think I have my copy close by.
I think I looked at the cover. Where is the cover?
It's these demons putting the JLA into bottles.
Yeah, it's the pink. Yeah.
Yep.
The pink.
Yeah,
cover.
That's the cover.
So, very exciting.
Yeah.
Something to look forward to. All right, I'm going to put my bookmark back in there. I'm going to lose my spot. Well, a huge thank you to the chat tonight. You guys have been awesome. The comments have been great. Love the insight. Appreciate the voting. We're giving this one to the JLA. It is now officially 6-4 JLA holding it down. And the next episode where we're covering issue 11, that's going to happen over on the Magic Lasso YouTube channel. So click the link Christina dropped in the chat, or use the links that are in the description for this video, and you can follow Ryan and get that notification bell clicked so that the next time when he goes live with this next episode, you'll be there in the chat and help to vote yet again. Ryan, I know you've had a lot of stuff going on the YouTube channel, a lot of things going on. You were just on live Sunday night. You just had your additions video come out. What do we got here? Banana covers aside, what do you got going on?
Okay, so this past Sunday we had Burke Family 54 Comics. We got Burke Nasty on Fanboys Live in the Retro Review.
Stay nasty.
We haven't gotten Burke Nasty. I mean, we had ever gotten that Burke Nasty as we did this past weekend. So that was always fun. Sure. And that's available to watch in the Rewind. He picked some good books for us to retro review. On Monday, all this month, I'm doing International Women's History Month edition of my back issue of the week. And this week, it's a Catwoman comic book, a little more modern Catwoman comic book, as a matter of fact, just from last year. That's currently up on my channel. My comic book editions, which has a Banana Wolverine thumbnail, that is up on my channel. That came out yesterday, and that's where I ended up revealing that I picked up this issue this past weekend. And literally, I just picked it up on Sunday. That's how... And I went to the store not knowing if they'd have anything I needed. For those that don't know, I was 9 issues away from completing JLA Volume 1. Now I'm 8 issues away. And when you find these in the wild, there's no feeling like that. When you're just running through and all of a sudden to me, I swear my eyes must get big, you know? And I look at it, I'm like, I'm happy with the condition. I'm happy with the price. And I'm like, all of a sudden, I see that 9 and it becomes 8. But that video is up on my channel right now. This upcoming Sunday, Signature King Tony Fett and I will have another Fanboys Live in the Retro Review, 8:15 p.m. Eastern, 7:15 p.m. Central. Joel the Geek will be our special guest for the Retro Review this upcoming weekend, and we're looking forward to that. And then
great community member.
More back issues of the week, more comic book editions, more stuff like that.
I love it. That's fantastic. I'm glad to hear it. For those that missed it, I'm going to swap my background around so you can see. On Monday, I'm going to drop us out. What? I had an omnibus unboxing on my channel, so you can go and watch the 2 omnibus that I unboxed that day. One being an X-Men one and one being a Wonder Woman one.
I have a question.
Love going on with that one.
I have a question.
Yes.
Am I allowed to watch that video?
You're allowed to watch up to a point,
or up to a portion, and then I can't watch. Okay.
Yeah, I definitely let you know. Okay, Ryan, look away.
Everyone else can watch the full thing. I can watch it only to a certain point.
Unless you have to watch so bad that you'll forget, and then when you unbox these things yourself.
I'm going to tell you something. There's 2 signs of old age: loss of memory, and I can't remember the other one.
I couldn't either. Yeah, I lost it. The other video I've got, and I'll do the same thing. I'll drop us out one more time. Where is it? My media. There we go. The other video I'm dropping is tomorrow, and it's going to be this one. I'm going through my favorite Black Panther comics in my collection, and I will show off some of the ones I've got. I'll talk a little bit about the stories for Black Panther that I'm reading, because I've been reading some Black Panther of late from the Reginald Hudlin era, and I'm planning to read a couple others as well. I show some books that I want to read as well, and I talk a little bit about what I'm missing in my Black Panther collection, and ask whether there's stuff that I'm missing that people can educate me about when it comes to Black Panther. So that's tomorrow. Saturday morning, I'm doing the Saturday morning show, and I'm planning to go through and talk a little bit about the convention that I'm going to in it's 2 weeks away. I'm going to WonderCon in Anaheim. It's my backyard comic convention, and right near Disneyland, about 35 minutes from me. And I'm looking at who's going to be there. Do I need to bring books to get signed? Am I going to get some remarks? Am I going to get some sketch covers? Because I got a bunch of those. And I'm going to talk about who I'm trying to meet up with in the community, people who might be there. So if you want to hear me go through some of those plans for the convention season now that it's kicking off, be there in the chat Saturday morning for that. Yeah, that's pretty much it, gang. Next week I'm back for Omni X-Men on my channel, so if you're an Omni X-Men fan, I will see you Tuesday when we're doing issue 23 of New Mutants. But other than that, gang, I appreciate everybody coming by. Ryan, another fantastic episode. I appreciate you.
Thanks for the fun.
Sharing great wisdom as always. Thanks everybody in the chat, and we will catch you again soon.
Bye.